pit or something, maybe some footings out of it, that kind of stuff. So it's first day of work officially in 24. So Happy New Year's 2024. Their pit dug out, and then they decided they wanted to dig some of the footings that tie into it. Kind of wish we'd have dug those first, but and I mentioned to them, you know, it might be better to dig those first. But sometimes that's how it goes. So we're just going to have to try to get up here as close as we can to this one. And there's a pier cap. There's a pier in there, so we won't be able to dig it all out anyway. But getting on the edge of this hole, pretty solid dirt, shouldn't go nowhere. I just have to sit and work a brake and dig with one stabilizer. I can almost reach all the way out there, I think. Be close. A little ice in the bucket there. Anyway, yeah, we're going to be real close. We're about 6 inches away from it. Anyway, got the 16-inch bucket on. I haven't used this bucket except for on this job in several years. I used to dig a lot of house footings with this bucket. That's about the only thing we used it for. It's kind of funny, most commercial jobs are 18-inch footings, and a lot of the house builders, of course, the minimum size for a footing around here is 16 inches, so that's what the house footing guys like to use. Anyway, it still works. Still digs holes. I wish we could have dug this out before I started this big hole, but oh well. That's the thing, is these jobs, they don't always go the way you want them to. They go the way they go. And it'll take me a little bit longer to dig it this way. I'm just going to probably push most of the dirt down in the big hole. We'll clean it out here and we'll get done digging these. So it's usually better when you're doing something like this to dig what you can reach easy, using your stabilizers if you can, and then we'll back up there a little closer to the edge of this hole and we'll punch some more of that out. But just try to do what you can. If you start that hole with no stabilizers down, it's harder to get started digging. So we'll get this dug out a little bit, and then we'll back up there and punch out the rest of it. Starting the hole is the hardest part of it. Any ditch you dig, it's when you're having to make a new hole, it's always a little bit harder. So, you know, like I say, you just kind of got to figure out. And I slid back just a little bit. I'm only on one outrigger now. So I can reach a little bit farther, but we'll continue to get back there a little closer. Oh man, just blew the wall out there. wasn't what I wanted to do. It'll be alright though. But it's good practice once in a while to dig without the stabilizers. It'll make you a little bit smoother. Because you just can't jerk the levers around when your stabilizers are up. You gotta really try to be smooth. So this is an elevator pit. I think it's 5'6" or something, 5 foot below dirt grade. We're not going to bench this one. I think we can get away with it. It's pretty good soil. We still got to go down a foot. They said 2 inches. That don't seem right, but. Like I say, this dirt's holding me up pretty good. I think we're okay. But there's a lot of out of position digs on this job, but none of it's really been easy. Working around rebar pier caps, you know, you're always fighting around an obstacle or something. So the good news is they put sand in there around the pier, so it should dig out. It's going to be a hand dig job there pretty much. So only so much you can do with a backhoe in that situation. Trying to get past the steel there. So these footings that go across the middle, they call them tie beams, and they actually tie the pier caps all together. They're not so much for load bearing or weight bearing, because after they're poured they actually get covered up in dirt. So they're more or less to hold these columns all together so they can't like deflect over left or right or whatever. That's about all I can get out of that. I don't know. About all I can do with that. We can reach this one pretty good, I think. And we're going to hit rebar because we've already dug some of that pier out. Always a good idea to set your parking brake when you're on a hole like this. It might not save you, but at least you made an effort. Yeah, we can reach that one pretty easy there. Like I say, it's already dug out quite a ways, so. Actually need to dig it backwards away from this hole. Another problem with these is the rebar coming out of the pier caps is up so high it's hard to get in line with them. A lot of times you can reach over a set of anchor bolts or reach over a pier or a cap, but in this case you really can't. quite enough. I mean, you can reach over it at a certain angle with the backhoe, but it's just not usually very convenient. And some of this, they may pour the elevator pit and the walls and then come back in later and dig some of the rest of this out. Which if they do that, it'll make it easier to do. So just hit the edge of the concrete they had poured there. They put a bulkhead in, and there'll be rebar coming out of that concrete to tie into the next run here. It would have been ideal to dig all of these at once, but we kind of had a conflict of we couldn't do what we wanted to do when we wanted to do it, so we had to just find something else to do. So tried to get a little head start on it, but in the long run this is going to take a little longer to do than it should have, because we're having to back up and dig in between these pier caps. But at least the pier caps the steel's all in them, they're tied, they're poured, they're ready to go. You can see, maybe you can see, there's 3 pieces of rebar out there where I just dug. Can't dig any deeper there because they're too close together. My teeth won't go around them. There'll be another. There's a lot of hand digging on this job. A lot. Digging and an air compressor with a blower on the end of it. You can blow that sand out of there pretty good with it. Wait for my new bucket coupler to get here and get it put on so I can change buckets easy. It's going to be pretty nice for jobs like this. Heading back down to the big hole in the ground that we're slowly digging away at. More footings in the bottom. We're digging some stuff that it would have been easier to do it. It would have been a lot easier to do this before the tried getting ahead a little bit by digging out the pier caps and the port piers, but I didn't realize there's going to have steel sticking out top of it. And that really makes tough dig on these because there's not a lot of room in between the steel and the. So it's a little time consuming. But we are gaining on it. See, I dug a little over halfway on this one. Now we'll dig backwards. The one thing I want to talk about on the backhoe is the New Holland is pretty handy because it will dig up almost underneath the pivot pin. If you're digging deep enough, it will actually dig under the pivot pin. So the reason that is helpful is when you're in tight quarters like this and you're trying to complete a ditch. I know I've been on case backhoes and they don't dig up close like that. They'll reach out farther, but they're not. For digging in a spot like this, it's really hard to beat this New Holland. And you can see the bucket will go right up under the machine, so you can clean that out a little bit, finish his ditch. So sometimes being able to dig closest to yourself is more important than being able to reach far away, because you can always back up if it's too far away, but you can't. There's just places you can't hardly get right. Looks like that one actually did line up pretty good. Anyway. Get off the ditch here. This guy get his dirt in the bucket. Got a Takeuchi, whatever you call them things. I don't know. I never feel like I say that right. But TL12, that's a new machine, brand new on this job. So a lot of the operators like the John Deere better. I think they're going to go to a lot more of the GL12s because they're quite a bit cheaper than John Deere. I don't know if that's a good reason to switch brands or not, but you can save a lot of money. I mean, like tens of thousands of dollars cheaper. I don't understand that. So we're going to dig this one next. It's got a pipe in the middle of it. Crossing over one up here that we dug last week. I think it was last week. We dug some of these last week. These guys dug a little bit yesterday before I wasn't here, so. Fine. I mean, they got machines out here to do work. But they got operators, they might as well use them. So anyway, they got that John Deere 35, and I've used it a couple times out here where there's some spots that were really tough to get to. And that little machine is pretty handy for getting up against the wall. But it just ain't got a big enough bucket. It's got a 12-inch bucket. We're digging 16, 18 inches wide. So it takes forever to dig a ditch with it. One of the things I've noticed on these new machines is it seems like they've got the horsepower limit. It's like they've got the engines maxed out to the max on the size of the machine. So, and they do that for, I'm sure, for emissions or whatever you call it. Call it a bunch of crap, but what we got to deal with. But I mean, that machine there on a cold day, it won't hardly move. It's just like it's underpowered. And when you turn the air conditioner on, you can feel it. It's like, wow, just lost 5 horsepower. I only had 15. The diesel emission systems are affecting equipment more than one way. I mean, they're building machines with less horsepower engines, and they're putting them in the same job, so the engines are not going to last as long. I mean, that's just a given. There's no way they can hold up. One reason this B95 has done so well, I think, is it's got a 98 horsepower engine, and like today I'm only using probably 40, 35 at the most. I mean, so engines tend to run longer, I think, if you don't run them at the maximum horsepower all the time. That's my theory. But you do have to take care of it. I don't know why we gotta have a clean out, right? It's full. And I think these pipes in here, they've got gravel around them. They have to do with draining the building and the walls, keeping everything dry. I know we dug into one the other day and it was pumping. We had a bunch of water coming out of that gravel into the ditch. We didn't break the pipe, but it was still making a lot of water. That pipe's just right in the way there. It's a nice January day, sun shining. It was about 26 this morning when I left the house. It's probably going to be 60 degrees out here before the day's over. Tomorrow's supposed to be a whole nother day. It's going to be cold. I think a low of 15. Maybe a high about 25 or something like that. It'll be pretty cold this weekend coming up. So anyway, this has been a pretty good job. Kept me busy 2 or 3 days a week for a while now. So that's another thing with footing work is you're usually not going to be on the same job every day for a full week. I mean, sometimes you can. And when we started this one, we were actually, I think they did actually have me digging every day for a little while. You get to a point where you got weather, you got rod busters, you got to get steel in the ditch before you can pour it. So this is Thursday. They're going to try to pour everything we dig today, tomorrow. They did dig a little bit yesterday too, so we'll pour that as well. Anyway. Not the funnest job in the world, but it's been an interesting challenge in places. Anyway, I might need to open the window up here so